Okay, so let's start. Now I will invite Norian. I've shared, given the the for you to share. You can start anytime. And if you have any questions, Sarah or Alban, please just stop Norian and just ask questions. And it's a discussion as well. So please chip in for discussion.
Okay. Just can you tell me if you can see my screen?
Yes, yes. Everyone can see the screen?
And feel free to interrupt if I'm lagging or if you can't hear me well because my connection is unstable.
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about the different marketplaces of Asia. So globally, the Asian market is very large and diverse, as it includes like more than half of the world's population, with 4.6 billion inhabitants in 2019 and even more nowadays. So it includes like China, a major player in world trade, Japan, which is a part of the trade, the four dragons or tigers. Then you have India and the countries of Southeast Asia and Australia, as well as New Zealand. So the Asian market is very contrasted since we find countries such as Japan or South Korea where the workforce is very expensive and highly qualified with, like for example, highly skilled engineers. And on the other hand, we find cheap and unskilled workers, like for example in China, India, or in the countries of Southeast Asia. The same goes for the products. On the one hand, you will have like big and high quality, for example, Samsung's technology, and on the other hand, you will have low quality products that are based more on quantities and quality. So the entire Asian market is a popular target for direct investment and international trade. And it is also a major player in global imports and exports. So we will now look at the market in a more focused way for each country or group of countries. So first, let me introduce you to the Japanese market. So Japan is the third largest largest economy in the world after China and the US. And it is part of the trade alongside the United States and Europe. It has opened up to the world and participates strongly in exports and imports with the world, even if like it has closed in on itself since the beginning of the sanitary crisis. So Japan has many international companies, especially in the technology sector, with a reputation of like high quality and skilled engineers. So we can mention like, for example, the Toyota Motors companies, which has like a total turnover of $235 billion, or you can have like Mitsubishi or Honda groups that are very famous too in the world. So the Japanese market has experienced like a strong growth in popularity since the 19th, thanks to his soft power, which is spreading like internationally with like manga, anime, culture, its food, or the tourism. And then like Japan's economic success during the past 70 years is in part due to a partnership between the Ministry of International Trade and Industry and the industrial sector. And it was called like the Keiretsu. And this was like controlled by large families of integral like companies. And so they control many things. And after all, like Japan has to face some challenges, especially the aging of its population and the fact that there is a very, very conservative and slow government. Then for Australia and New Zealand, it can be seen that exports are very important as they represent respectively 17% and 18% of the 2017 GPD. And like Australia exports its many natural resources, but the lack of workforce. So it kind of complicated to work anymore. And New Zealand, due to its large pasture land, they can export like dairy products, meat, and wool. And then like Australia, China, and Japan, and the United States, they are the one that pushes approximately half as New Zealand exports and imports. Concerning China's marketplace, this is the world's second largest economy just after the United States, and it is a very large market with a population equivalent to 1.5 billion people. So it represents like a very significant consumer opportunity. The market has been growing rapidly for the last 20 years, and as it has opened up to the world economy and business, even if they have like a communist policy. And despite a decline in growth due to the pandemic in 2020, it has seen like an impressive 18% rebound in the first quarter of 2021. So the Chinese market offers like an advantage for foreign companies in terms of investment and relocation of factories, as it offers a large amount of cheap labor. And China itself also issues many investments abroad, like since 2005, China has been sending a lot of financial direct investments. Like they are more focused on acquiring like energy and natural resources because their leaders thought that it was important for the national security to control resources. Now we'll see. So in the textbook, they are talking about the 4 tigers, but I've learned that in French we say that it's 4 dragons. So the 4 dragons refers to the 4 East Asian economies that became industrial in the second half of the 20th centuries and formed the first generation of newly industrialized Asian countries. So these are South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. So these countries have experienced a strong economic and industrial growth thanks to a big foreign investment, and particularly from the triad countries, so United States, Europe, and Japan. So first to begin with South Korea, it has experienced a fast economic growth after the Korean War. Actually, the economy is a lot based on exports. And to give you an idea, like the merchandise exports accounted for 37% of its 2017 GDP with $1.5 trillion. And for being here in Korea, I can also tell that the economy relies a lot on their massive consumption, whether it is in activities, daily shopping, or even like food. So to conclude with South Korea, we can name some huge companies such as Samsung, Hyundai, Daewoo Group, and LG that support South Korea's economy. These are the chaebol. So another member of the 4 dragons is Hong Kong. This is a very cosmopolitan area with many nationalities. So Hong Kong is very attractive to multinational companies as it is a link between China, Taiwan, and the rest of the world. and therefore they host a significant amount of FDI. So Hong Kong is an important exporter. Like in 2017, it exported like $550 billion of worth of goods, and it represented like 161% of its GPD. But the issue with Hong Kong is its current political instability, as there is a major conflict with China. Like Hong Kong wishes to remain autonomous over its justice system, while Beijing is trying to impose the control of Chinese justice on the territory, so there are many tensions. So maybe this is not the ideal for companies to invest in Hong Kong now. So to keep going, let's continue with another, with Taiwan, whose status is not, it is also contested. So Taiwan has a similar economic system as other dragons, and it experienced like a fast economic growth thanks to exports. And in fact, in 2017, like the GPDs had like 63% was for exportation, and it was a value of $362 billion. And then the last dragon member is Singapore. It was a former British colony island, and the economy grew up successfully thanks to the development of labor-intensive industries such as textiles. But Singapore now suffers from a labor shortage, so it cannot compete in terms of intensive labor compared to other countries, such as Honduras or Malaysia. However, thanks to its port, is harbor, like Singapore imports foreign goods, and then it re-exported to neighboring countries such as Malaysia. So this technique led export share to represent 171% of its 2011 GDP.
Okay, just a short question.
Yeah.
What is common between Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, mainly? Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. What is, very common? What's the common, element that if you observe?
I think it is to re-export.
Yeah, they are trading nation. Okay, they are trading nation.
Yeah.
Alban, what do you think? What's the commonalities? What are these countries, population like, or even anyone, Norian or Alban or
the population, like they have a lot of Chinese in their population.
Okay, that's what I wanted to. Okay. It's actually very Chinese dominated way of doing business. If you have you engaged in any Chinese friends, or have you, do you have in contact with Chinese before, Alban or Sarah?
Yeah, a few. Yeah,
a few. Okay, so if you start understanding their way of doing things, Chinese are very. We call it, the Jews of the East, actually. The Jews of the East are actually, the Chinese. I mean, if you heard of that phrase, they're very fast. They do business by just handshaking. They just, strike a deal, and they do things. They're very innovative. That's why Singapore, they move so fast. We were independent, same as Malaysia, but Singapore, they grew so fast, rapid, and very strategic, and that's common thing. And South Korea, even if you look at Japan also, these are common, way of doing things. South Korea also very fast, productive, and hardworking people. Really hardworking, not hardworking, maybe overworking people. they, they they really push, and they work until midnight. They don't stop working. If you see them, they will work until midnight. They don't. I do not know where when they rest. They don't have leisure time. Okay, carry on, Norian. You have any questions? I will. Actually, GDP. It's not GPD. This GDP, gross domestic product. Maybe it's French. Is it GPD? French?
No.
You type
it's in French.
It's GDP, gross domestic product. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. Please continue.
Yeah. So I will continue with the marketplace in India. This country has the second largest population in the world, with a total of 103 billion people, but it is also one of the poorest countries in the world. So India has also British bureaucracy influence, so it can be difficult to have a business with because it's kind of slow. And so therefore countries didn't want to invest in India because of poverty and like slow interaction with documents, etc. So it is from 1991 that countries started to invest more in India because there was like a market opening reform. So this is from this moment that India had a huge growth each year, but the country also faces some challenges such as corruption. And then to finish, I will go with Southeast Asian markets quickly. So these countries are like Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and now we can count Vietnam too. And so these countries are very popular with multinational companies because they offer cheap labor, and so they benefit from many direct investments from Europe countries, Japan, or the United States. So yeah, I finished. I tried to go like quickly, not to say too much.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Norian. So you can stop sharing, and let me just fill up gaps.
Yeah, of course.
Things that probably you have not mentioned. I'll just try to. I will fill up some of the things that probably will be necessary for you to understand. Okay.
Yeah, I skipped some part because it would be too long.
It's okay, no problem. No worries. Okay. So Asia. This is Asia. Alban, Asia. So you're now in Korea, right? So this is China. This is India. Yeah, is how much population? What was the population like? Half of the world population or quarter of the world population is in Asia. Okay, this is Malaysia. This is Sumatra. I love to travel. That's why I see places. Then I've been to Thailand. I've been to Cambodia also. It's a backward country. Nothing again, I've been to, I haven't been to Cambodia. Sorry. I was in Laos. I was having a meeting in Vientiane. It's maybe it's like Malaysia in 1960s. Okay, so you go to countries, you can see. Right. Of course, the advanced. So it's diverse, too diverse. In Asia, there are poor countries, slow development. China is fast moving. Indonesia is a country that should be, followed. You need to follow Indonesia. if you're talking about global economy. So China, India, and Indonesia are the first, second, and fourth most populous country. Indonesia is the fourth. It's more than 200 million, and is predominantly Muslim dominated. Okay, so Southeast Asia, there's countries which are Muslim oriented, Islam, some Buddhist. Thailand is Buddhist. Okay. So I think you mentioned this, like more than 50% live in Asia, 1/3 of world GDP, but only 1/3. so it's low, right? I mean, compare with the people that we have. And there's high quality and low quality products, like what you mentioned just now. It's also a source of both skilled and unskilled labor. You know, like in Japan, it's very highly skilled. In Korea, highly skilled. If you go to India, you know, there are unskilled labor. So it's a very diverse, marketplace. But foreign investments by MNCs are pouring in, you know, in China. Indonesia recently is very attractive for foreign direct investment, okay, FDI. And it comes from, from US, from Japan, because it is politically stable. Political stability is probably one of the most important criteria for foreign direct investment, and also what do you call incentives, attractive policies, very fast business registration. You know, like you mentioned India just now. India take years to register a business. Malaysia is not bad. Malaysia business is very fast registration. Registration means you want to set up the factory, you need to get the approval from the MITI, Ministry of Industry, International Trade Industry. You need to get approval from the local authorities on, regulations on the, where you can set up your sites, your factories, the, the tax system, like, all the requirements, safety requirements, and so on. So if it takes very long time, no one wants to come to the country, right? As well as legal systems. If the legal systems are corrupted, or it's unfair business practice, unfair, companies that invest in, like Malaysia, and if they have disputes, and they always get being, unfair treatment by the courts, then do you want to invest in such countries? Do you think you want to invest in a country in which the legal system does not, favor? So this is a bit, those are important things. That is, right. So superpower. Japan is the superpower. I think you mentioned only Keiretsu a little bit, Norian. But what is Keiretsu, and what is Sogo Sosha? Have you heard of Keiretsu?
Keiretsu, from what I've understood, is it like from the big families?
Yeah, it's a big family. Okay, it used to be a big family. It is, and it's a conglomerate. Conglomerate. It is it's similar to Sogo Sosha. Sogo Sosha is a huge holding company. For example, Sumitomo. You have heard of Sumitomo? Or even Mitsubishi Corporation, right? Because Mitsubishi, it has its own bank. It has its own, it produces all the products that it has. That means it's like one government by itself. Okay? It produces everything. It produces its own beer. It produces its own, food products. And Keiretsu means, like Toyota. Toyota has its Keiretsu. The supplier of the supplier of the supplier are all related. Okay, they have shareholdings of their tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. It's like chaebol. You know, in Korea, it's called chaebol. Chaebol, Keiretsu, Guangxi, same model. They give business to their own companies so that the money come back to them. They don't want to give to, you know, Denso is a supplier to Toyota, but Denso is a subsidiary of Toyota. Okay, so that's how they create the Keiretsu. You can do a research on that. Actually, you can do a study on the Keiretsu system in Japan. Okay, how they actually work together. That's why, you know, these are, you know, the way in which it's part of the reason why they are successful. Okay, so using Keiretsu is their culture, their way of doing things, and that's why they are very successful. And also Sogo Sosha. But I think Japan is, you know, they're facing a lot of challenges basically. Slow growth, zero interest rates, 0%. Okay, no interest rates. Okay, and they need to actually response to, you know, the changing world environment, right? But and also the growing demographic crisis you mentioned just now. You're right, aging society, not enough workers in Japan. The problem today is they don't have young people to be recruited into the workforce, so they need to recruit from overseas today. Do you know that Japan is actually has opened up for foreign workers to work in Japan? You go to Japan, then you will see. There are Nepalese, there are Malaysians, there are Indonesians who actually, you know, go there and work, get a permit. But they're very strict. You must know Japanese. You must not bring your family. If you're married, you only come alone. So they are very, very, you know, they're very clear of what they want to do, basically. So World Economic Power, Keiretsu, Sogo, social things which are important. Okay, Australia and New Zealand is also, you know, a big, even though it's, you know, it's probably very specialized, you know, like New Zealand, natural resources industries. They don't have much in manufacturing. Even they used to have automotive manufacturing, they have closed down. Ford have they don't produce cars anymore. I think they are rich in natural resources as well as, well, tourism probably. Tourism is actually, you know, one of their big, you know, economic gains, not gains, their earnings. New Zealand, I mean, everybody know New Zealand produces one of the biggest dairy products, meat. They have lambs, they have cows, they have, you know, because they have extensive pasture land and dairy products and all this, you know, coming from what do you call agricultural and poultry. And these countries buy more than 50%. Australia, China, Japan, and US. Of course, Australia is their neighbor. Okay. Right. Any questions? Anything that you probably want to, you know, add? And have you been to New Zealand or Australia? Me too. I've not been. I've never been to Australia and New Zealand. No opportunity. And of course, the 4 tigers. Okay, you are right, Norian. They are also known as the dragons. Okay, in the late 90s, they were the dragons. Okay, they were the dragons. It is the Malaysia was supposed to be one of the 5 tigers, but Malaysia failed. Okay, we were supposed to be one of the 5 dragons, but the remaining 4, one of them died. You know. So Pacific Asia is one of the most rapidly industrialized, the 4 tigers. It is also known as the NIC, NIEs, And you can see is fantastic. You know, if you study how South Korea is a military country, you know, South Korea, and yet they can actually become, turn into market economy from agricultural base. South Korea used to be agriculture based. They transform into industrialization, and they build ships, they build steel factories, automotive, electronics within a span of, well, probably 30 years. 1980s, 80, 90, 2000, 40 years. When I was young, you know, when I was a small kid, South Korea was like Malaysia. Same, okay? Because we developed the same time. Same as Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, okay? Right. So one of the world's fastest growing economies, merchandise exports accounted for 30% of these four tigers. And see, chaebol. So chaebol, Keiretsu, Guangxi, similar concept. And imagine, and also one more criteria for success is tight cooperation between government and large conglomerates. Okay. Of course, there were cases of briberies and so on. Okay, that's going to be part of the package, you know, to try to bring up and develop. What else? Reliance on family-owned private business, world's fastest growing economies until today. Singapore until today, they managed to sustain until today. Singapore is, one of fantastic. Okay. Right. Do you know Taiwan's semiconductor company, TSMC? Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. You should know, because they are one of they produce 24% of the world's market on microchips, chips. TSMC, you should Google TSMC. And they are, they are even bigger than Intel, bigger than what else? Who are the other producers? Qualcomm, okay? Because there's a shortage of microchips today, right? So they are, and yesterday I saw one video, you can Google that. They are making a factory in Arizona. TSMC is investing in US, investing in Arizona. Within 2 years, they will be producing this, high-tech, advanced, very, nanometers. 3 nanometers, chips. We also cannot imagine how. Anyway, Taiwan is leading in terms of chips manufacturing. It's leading, That's of course there's competition, right? Okay. Because why they re-export Singapore. Okay, this is the case of Singapore. Re-exporting 160% because they bring in and they re-export. That's why it is 160% of its GDP. It's making money by importing and re-exporting. In fact, a lot of Malaysian manufacturers, they use Singapore port, but because of pandemic, there's no way to go. But before pandemic, manufacturers use Singapore port. So we lose out. Malaysia lose out by the efficiency of Singapore ports. Excellent port facilities. And also, you must know that Singapore is also the center for oil refining. One of the biggest, in the world. Oil refinery. You still see a lot of oil refineries. They don't produce oil. They buy the oil, refine it, and sell it at the value added. That's how, that's how hardworking Singaporeans are. I was born in Singapore, but I've never grew up in Singapore. I became a Malaysian, okay? That's history, okay? I have my families, I have my uncles, my aunties, I have families in Singapore as well. I go to Singapore quite often. Before pandemic, of course, during pandemic, I cannot go. It's I can see from my own eyes how Singapore became developed country, right from my younger days, when I was small, and they become high technology center. They're very strategic. They get the best, brains from all over the world, bring to Singapore, set up, the semicon industry, or even biotech. They are going into biotechnology today. So they're very strategic. And they don't have corrupt government. Okay, that's one thing. Singapore, I mean, that's how you be able to create wealth and manage the wealth, and everybody will actually enjoy the wealth. Sad story for Malaysia. Okay, Hong Kong also. Okay, Hong Kong is also. Right, I think I'm allowing you some time. If not, you don't have other time. Okay, China is very, it was communist party. No, it's still communist. Okay, but the theory is that communist is centralized economy. That means it is all centralized. But now they managed to have, it's a dual system. It is a communist rule, but the economy is market oriented. So you try to imagine that it is communist control, but it's market economy. It grew 10.9% a year from 2000. Imagine 10.9%. You try to Google the high-speed rail in China. How many thousand kilometers they managed to build within the span of 20 years? Of course, it's a huge country. That's how they actually create that wealth. Okay, and also this urbanization of China, and because of FDI, foreign direct investment. All the big car manufacturers are in China. All the apparels, electronics, okay, semicon industries, and so on. So they will, and they are very smart. They go to Africa. They don't get the material. They say, okay, let's build a port. Let's build the highway so that I can extract the materials and send back to China. So they invest in infrastructure. They don't just extract and they help countries actually. There's a book called China Safari, okay, which talks about how China invests in Africa. Okay, so it's quite an old book, maybe like 10 years ago. China's inward and outward foreign and direct investment. You see, you don't have to this is the growth, the steep growth of the graph. You can see how how they actually manage. But of course, there is a drop there, outflows from China. India and Southeast Asia, okay. Southeast Asia is actually, because after the pandemic, many countries are coming to Southeast Asia as well. They see, potential for investing in Indonesia, especially. Okay, right. Let me stop here, so that I will want, any questions? Any questions, Sarah? Are you next? Yes, okay. So you're next. So you can prepare and share the slide.
Okay.
Okay. This looks African.
Yes. Well, this looks
Middle East.
Yeah, more Middle East.
Okay. Okay.
So I will present African and Middle Eastern markets. Let's start with Africa. So Africa is the second largest continent after Asia in the world, both in terms of population and size. The main religion is Islam. Arabic is also the most widely spoken language. And Africa covers approximately 22% of the world's total land area. And it's, of course, very rich of natural resources, and it's home to 1.1 billion people and 55 countries. So as a marketplace, well, as I said, it's home to 55 nations, each with its own policies and attitudes towards multinational companies, as well as its own languages, currency, and traditions. And well, I will try to give a little introduction of Africa's countries by organizing them according to their economic diversification and level of exports. So the first section is the diversified economies. So Africa's four most advanced, let's say, economies are Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, and Tunisia. So they have well-developed manufacturing and service industries. They have relatively high per capita incomes and more stable GDP growth than most of the other countries. All of this despite of the political risks in North Africa. So these countries are also Africa's largest consumer markets, but they have a higher labor cost than China or India. So they do struggle to compete even in low volume manufacturing industries. So they need to expand exports, improve education to create a skilled workforce, and well, build infrastructures. So the second section is the oil exporters. So Africa's oil and gas, actually not only oil, exporters have the continent's highest per capita incomes, but they are also the least diversified economies. So the three largest, which are Algeria, Angola, and Nigeria, have quickly grown consumer markets. For example, in Angola, retail banking grew by 6.8% a year through 2020, and telecommunication services by 5.2% a year. And also non-food consumer goods by 4.4% a year. So, well, because of their income levels, the oil exporters are attractive markets for high-end goods and services. Sorry. So Africa's oil exporters face the same challenges as many resource-rich nations, which are maintaining political stability, resisting the temptation to overinvest, which would make them vulnerable if commodity prices decline, and creating a diversified economy. The third section is the transition economies. So Africa's transition economies, such as Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, or Senegal, have lower per capita incomes than the countries in the first two groups. But they are growing rapidly. So even though their agriculture and resource sectors together account for 35% of their GDP and 2/3 of exports, these countries increasingly export manufactured goods to other African countries. So the telecom and modern retailing is much lower than it is in the diversified economies, but it still offers attractive opportunities. So the last section is the pre-transition economies. And these economies are, their annual per capita GDP is all around $350 on average. But some of them are expanding rapidly. And the three largest, which are the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, and Mali, have grown on average 7% a year since 2000. So these pre-transition economies differ greatly well, they differ a lot, but all of them lack of a stable government, strong public institutions, and sustainable agricultural development. So now let's talk about Middle Eastern market. So first, just to give a little definition, even though
before you move to Middle East, can you go back to the African so all these categories, categories are defined according to which organization or any particular?
The Harvard Business Review.
Harvard Business Review have grouped them into these categories. Yes. Okay, you just so it is like the first one is the oil exporting, the
diversified economies. The second one is the oil exporters, because the main part of their economy only relies on oil. And then the transition economies, and the last one is the pre-transition economies.
I see. So these are based on per capita, is it? Or basically mainly?
Yes.
Basically
per
capita.
Their GDP also.
Or GDP. Okay. Right. There are countries like for example, Sierra Leone. Where are they? Sierra Leone or even Guinea. They're not mentioned here.
Yeah, they're not mentioned.
Do you know that Sierra Leone or some of these African countries, they have they're actually very rich countries. Diamond fields, because even the book mentioned about Botswana. The rich diamond fields, those are countries which are what they call actually rich countries, but exploited by the. I'm not blaming the West. Okay, it is a fact. Okay,
no, it's a fact. It's a fact because of the colonization, and also when they were colonized, like still to this day, still a lot of consequences.
De Beers is one of the biggest diamond company. Have you heard of this? De Beers is a diamond company.
Not this one. I know that in Tunisia there's a salt company, and a big part of the company is
owned by
France. But everything happens in Tunisia, but it's owned by France. So there are a lot of cases like this in Africa. Sometimes it's owned by France or by England or
the traditional, people who actually have came to that during colonization. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes like these countries have a lot of resources, but they can't exploit it. So.
Okay. You can move on to Middle East.
Yes.
Okay.
Middle Eastern. So, so Middle East. It's the area from the Eastern Mediterranean to Iran, including Syria, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq, and sometimes Egypt. So the Middle East has been referred to as the crossroads of the world because it connects the three continents of Asia, Africa, and Europe. And Arabic is the most commonly spoken language. So looking at this situation in, for example, Yemen, Syria, or Iraq, it can be, let's say, tempting to see the Middle East as a place with intractable conflict and systemic problems. It's true that in the last half century, it has suffered through several wars, which raised the risk of doing business in the region. And in 2011, the Arab Spring started. So I thought it was kind of important to talk about it, even though it concerns, the geographical zone would be probably it's called the MENA. It's basically Middle Eastern and North Africa. So Arab Spring is basically protest against the lack of democracy, poor employment opportunities, and high levels of income inequality, which led to the resignation of rulers of Egypt and Tunisia, and inspired a lot of countries. So it started in Tunisia in 2011, and it spread across a lot of Arab countries. Well, actually it started with a man who set himself on fire in Tunisia. And then, well, it inspired, for example, Syria, but it still has consequences to this day. And in some countries, it's still not over. That is one of the reasons why there are several conflicts in the Middle East. So this region is vast and complex, and outsiders who do not fully understand its nations and peoples tend to overlook the nuances of nearly 20 countries that make up the Middle East. But it also represents many opportunities. And well, the best example of this is probably the success of the United Arab Emirates. And the attractiveness of this country can be explained by two factors, including the economic and political stability. So the GDP of the UAE was worth $421 billion in 2019. Since its inception in 1971, the UAE's economy has largely depended on its exports of oil and gas, but the progressive government efforts, their government led to, other sectors, other sectors such as real estate and tourism to flourish. And the UAE was also named as the world's 25 most competitive economy, according to the Global Competitiveness Report in 2019. So some of the factors influencing this record include strategic location, strong financial reserves, and consistent government spending on infrastructures and digital transformation and innovation. So the second factor, and actually the last one, is the strategic location. So the UAE is located between Asia, Europe, and Africa. And being in such close proximity to some of the world's fastest growing economy in Asia represents many business opportunities to those based in the UAEs. It offers optimal trading conditions, and it has made, for example, Dubai a transcontinental trade hub for the rest of the world. So tourism has become one of the driving forces of the economy in Dubai. And in 2019, more than 50 million people passed through the Dubai airport, which makes it one of the busiest airports in the world. Mm-hmm. So to conclude, Africa and Middle East are two geographical areas that are full of resources and that promise a lot of development in the coming years.
Okay, coming back to Dubai being the hub for airlines to fly to America, that was never been thought by other countries. It used to be, from the Far East, fly to Europe via London or via Amsterdam, but no more today. You can go from Far East, go to Dubai, Dubai to Chicago, Dubai to New York. So Dubai, and imagine one country having, if I'm not mistaken, 3 airlines. UAE has 3 airlines. Of course, this is pre-pandemic, right? It was very successful. They have Emirates, they have Etihad, and they have Air Arabia. Air Arabia is the low-cost carrier which flies to, I think, Sharjah, and Emirates fly to Dubai, Etihad fly to Abu Dhabi. So it's the same country, but they have 3 hubs. So it's bringing, huge amount of tourism money, and also, flights. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's a,
and
yeah.
also, although I just thought that I didn't mention that, but I heard also that I know that Saudi Arabia has this plan. It's called, I think it's called Saudi 2030, something like that, and they want to improve tourism and diverse their economy too.
Right,
So
yeah, okay. Then since you mentioned that, actually I have this. So okay, just to pick up on what. Okay, I want to mention this. Actually, Middle East is the cradle of civilization. It's the birthplace of all the Semitic religions, Islam, Jewish, and also Christianity. That's a fact. Of course, being Muslim, we have certain belief systems, right? But it's the same God that we are actually praying to. Same God. Jews, same God. Only different set of understanding. And war, the history of conflict and political unrest is not only just the recent 200 years. No, since mankind. Okay. So everybody must understand that it's not. And God have given oil in this place so that we will fight until doomsday. Okay, Albert, that's my just my opinion, right? You can look at it. You can read the book on the so-called Holy War. How the Christians fought with the Muslims, Saladin. So you read that the war today is not started 500 years ago. It has been it's been ages. The fight for Jerusalem has been ages. It's not, but of course you will have your own ideas. It's home to many Irish countries. Diversification, life after all, that must be considered. That's why Vision 2030 come into place. You must have diversification in your economy. If you don't have, then how are you going to survive? So Vision 2030 is a unique transformation of Saudi Arabia, economically and social reform. That's why there's concerts now in Saudi, which I don't agree. Okay, there's in Mecca, Medina is our holy land actually, but it is transforming. Okay, it is. You can read that. You can read it's in the in fact, before the pandemic started, Saudi has actually opened up to tourism. Non-Muslims can go right until Mecca, Medina, and can visit these places. But because the pandemic is stopped, okay. So it's the cradle of civilization. Is where the US wants oil to fuel the economy. They go here. The China also want oil. Malaysia have own oil, our own oil. So this Russian war is going to affect heavily on a lot of things. Even today, yesterday I read about a shortage of cooking oils. Cooking oil are being rationed in UK. Because Indonesia is also stopping the export of palm oil because it's not enough for their own country. So there'll be, hard times are coming. This hard time is coming for sure. No, I'm not saying You know, I'm not a doomsayer, okay? Just for, you know, for argument's sake or just for discussion's sake, Israel is actually, even though you know some, you know, even though Muslims don't recognize Israel as a state, but their GDP, their contribution, their economy is, you know, one of the biggest in the world. Huh, Sarah? You agree? They produce chips. They have Intel in Israel. They produce you know, agriculture products. They produce you know, oranges. They produce dates, and they have high tech products. So they are also part of the, you know, what do you call, global business ecosystem. Okay, Israel is there. Okay, come on, Aban.
Sure.
Oh, you want to take a 5-minute break first? It's 11 actually.
Okay.
You want to take a 5-minute break? Then after that, we'll continue with Alban finally.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's take 5. Let's take 5, yeah? And can have coffee, Sarah. And the rest of you, we take 5, and you know, we will listen to Alban once you know, come back after the break. Okay. Right. See you in 5 minutes time. About 5 minutes time.